All right. I am so happy to be back with you guys. We are having a very special guest today. Dr. Betsy Redmond with Innovative Pet Labs is here to talk about some really cool things for cats. So, you guys know we are totally supportive of cats and cat parents. And it is my personal passion here at Perfectly Holistic to educate and empower cat parents to be able to do better for their cats and apply more holistic approaches. And so Dr. Betsy Redmond is joining us today because we're going to talk about a really exciting technology and testing tool for cats. So thank you, Dr. Redmond, for joining us today.
Oh, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I am so excited because there are so many cat parents out there that really struggle with a variety of issues. And I think probably very similar to dogs, cats have so many GI problems. Whether it's pancreatitis, they get diagnosed with lymphoma, they have vomiting, they have diarrhea issues, they have IBD. And, the vets are just kind of like, here, take this medicine, here, take this steroid, and we're just going to manage it. But they don't really understand what's going on. And so when I learned about this particular test that we are going to talk about today, I was super excited because I feel like it's finally going to give people some tools and shed some light on areas and actually help them get answers, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal. We worked in the human space before we all started to do a dog. First, we started as dogs, and then cat people were like, hey, wait. And we're like, we have cats too. So there was just more research when we started. So we worked in the human space. We say we have a combined 100 years experience in
Wow.
the human space. And we were doing all that same stuff. Like it was more integrative and functional. So we were
Hmm.
looking at the microbiome. We were looking at the markers that identify inflammation and beyond just the typical stuff. So like a person would go, they have bloating or diarrhea or gas or whatever. They go to the gastroenterologist and they say, oh, well, they did a colonoscopy and they say you don't have cancer or IBD, so bye. And so there are just no solution. So I think that's how functional medicine got a lot more press. People just they want some solutions, even if you don't have IBD diagnosis like Crohn's or colitis, or you don't have colon cancer, you can still have issues that need to be dealt with. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so, and sometimes it's making diet changes. Sometimes it's just supplements that are helping, fibers, prebiotics, stuff with gut
Hmm.
lining. So, I actually, we started because I had a dog, Linda, and she had a lot of gut issues. And so we were like, hey, why don't we do this for our pets? And,
Yeah.
so we started with dogs, and then we got a lot of people saying, hey, what about cats? And okay. And so
That's
we look. So you'll see we have a comprehensive test for cats. And so what we have is a stool test. So you collect stool, and we're looking at specific markers. And there's not as much research on cats. So we
Mhm.
do them, we find the research we can. And, so normally when you set a lab value, you'll set it and then you'll look and see what the research is. But there haven't been a lot with cats. So we kind of have
Right.
to, so we want to add more. It just takes longer to add more with cats.
Right. Do you find that your clients who come to you for the test, do they volunteer for their sample to be included in a study?
We did a study, what was it, a year ago? And it was kind of funny. So we wanted to do a study. We were doing it with another group, and they wanted to see if some products would help. So
Yeah.
we put a call out to their group, and we wanted to get cats who had gut issues
Mhm.
for our study. And then one of the criteria, and I don't know how it got put in there, was like you could only have one cat. And so then it was like,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
nobody had one cat.
I think that was Jane Adrian, right? The 2 crazy
Yeah,
cat
it was
ladies.
Jane,
You
the
were
two
doing
crazy cat ladies. Yeah.
yeah, their
So
new products. Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're like, okay, you can have more cats. Yeah, they were great because they have 6 cats and they
Uh-huh.
collected and they knew when their cats went poop and they knew like which poop was which cat's.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so they were
Yep.
able to get that. So yeah, I mean, we like to do studies just because then we have a longer questionnaire.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What has been well, let's first of all, let's talk about the tests that you have.
Right.
And then like what would be indications that this would be a really good test for someone to try or to use for their cat?
Okay. So, I mean, the biggest thing would be if they're gut issues.
Okay.
So, and those are going to be like if there were, constipation, diarrhea, stuff like that. Um, but when you're thinking about if there are big gut issues, there also can be issues with digestion and absorption.
Mhm.
So, there may be some issues with nutrients. So maybe they don't look as healthy, and maybe their gut seems okay, but they don't look quite as healthy as you think. There's also a lot of times skin conditions relate
Yeah.
to the gut. Mood
Mhm.
disorders are big with the gut. I mean, there's not much in the body that doesn't interact with the gut.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's part of it's, 70% of the immune system is in the gut.
right.
So,
Do you also find with immune system issues like cats who have viruses and, other chronic immune issues, would this be a good test for them too, since the microbiome and the immune system are in the same location? They
yeah, I mean, so with the cat comprehensive test, we're looking at 4 markers. And I think one of the biggest distinctions with us is like we're looking at markers that identify what's happening in the gut. We're not
Mhm.
looking at the microbiome.
Yeah, yeah.
So, our markers, and the reason, I mean, we worked in a human lab that was doing microbiome. So, a lot of us started with one of the first microbiome tests available to people. So we're totally familiar
Nice.
with that.
Mhm.
But we were looking for markers that were more actionable. So
Mhm.
there's, more research certainly in people, but
Yeah.
in pets, you could see maybe certain patterns that were associated with inflammation or associated with intestinal permeability, leaky gut. And
Mhm.
so we preferred to have the markers that were actually checking that.
Yes. No, that
So,
makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the things that the comprehensive gut health check for cats
yeah,
looks
so we have really 3 tests. So we have the comprehensive, which has 4 markers in it,
okay?
or you can break it up and do 2 and 2.
Okay.
So, we usually and then the dog one is like 6 markers, and then it has 3 different pairs. So we usually look at them in pairs, and, normally, we'll say if somebody's asking, like, which one to do, we'll say, "Do the comprehensive," and then you can just repeat on those
Mhm.
markers that were out of range. So we look at the one is called, inflammation and immunity. So we
Yes.
look at a marker called calprotectant. So, calprotectant in the stool is going to identify how much inflammation there is in the gut. So, they've done studies where they go in and they get a biopsy of the gut, and then they look at what level, of inflammation there is, and then they'll look at what the level of fecal calprotectin is. They've done scopes, and then they correlate that to different levels of fecal calprotectin. So it directly correlates with doing biopsies or scopes. So once you establish something, it can kind of save your cat from having to get more, scopes.
Invasive.
Um,
Yeah.
right, for more invasive kind of procedures. So
Mhm.
calprotectant, it's a neutrophil infiltration into the gut lining, and neutrophils are just a type of white blood cell.
Yep.
So it just is telling you how much white blood cell, how many are there. And it's like anything. If you have a lot of inflammation, if you cut your hand and there's redness and swelling, you're going to get, white blood cells. You're going to get the immune system running over there and checking it. So
Yes.
if there is an inflammatory process in the gut, you're going to get more white blood cells. So the higher the calprotectant, the, more significant that is.
Yeah.
And so, and we'll normally like with that, we give, sometimes just changing diet or changing a protein or adding a topper, like an anti-inflammatory topper, or getting a supplement that has, some anti-inflammatory products in it,
Mhm.
that can be helpful. We do say, like, if your pet has a really high calprotectin and they've had more severe conditions, like symptoms, like if they've lost a bunch of weight, like don't just do diet change. Go see
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
professional to make sure it's not something pretty serious. But normally we're just a direct to consumer, so people can do the test and see how the pet is. So calprotectin's kind of a big one, and so people may do it for their pet who has different symptoms, whose
Mm.
mood changed or skin or gut issues. But also, we get a lot of people who spend a lot of time taking care of their pets and they want to know that all that's working. Because just like in people, if you
Yep.
were going to develop IBD, IBD is going to be like Crohn's or colitis, something, like
Mhm.
inflammatory bowel disease, which is different than irritable bowel syndrome. But just like any condition, you don't just wake up and have it, it gradually comes and you may
Yes.
not notice it at first. So you certainly may not notice it first at your cat. So you're going to, if you do what you can see, are they developing any inflammation?
Mhm.
So
What are the most common symptoms that cat parents come to you guys with that decide I need to get this test done?
I think, changes in behavior is one. And then
Okay.
just, gut issues, you know,
Mhm.
would be in
Mhm.
there. Um, so, and it just varies. So it varies a lot. Um, and then we'd get a lot of health checks. Like,
Yeah.
my cat seems fine. I just want to it's like if you were to go get a physical and you're just checking, your
Mhm.
doctor would check your inflammation, your LDLs, like different things just to see, is there any immune activity or things going on?
Right. Do you check for things like vitamin D deficiency, or does that show up on a test like this? Because I know it's related to gut and
Right. Well, I mean, I think vitamin D, it has hormonal activity and it's going to be
Mhm.
so related to immune system
Mhm.
that, and certainly I would think of, adding any of those immune supporting things,
Yeah.
if there's immune issues. We also, and then the same thing, vitamin D can be low for a long time before you really
Yeah.
notice it.
True.
But the other marker we have, like there's an inflammation and immune test. So it has calprotectin. And then the other marker that's on that is secretory IgA.
Okay.
So secretory IgA is immunoglobulin. So it's S immunoglobulin A. And there's actually 5 different immunoglobulins. One of them is
Okay.
IgE, that's like a true allergies. There's IgG, I think there's DM.
Um,
But the secretory IgA because it's secretory, it's right anywhere there's a mucous membrane. So it's big in
okay.
the so it
Yeah.
is considered the first line of defense at the gut lining.
Okay.
So it's made in the plasma cells. So you have, the gut itself, it's got all those little villi,
Yep.
and they kind of have the crypts. So underneath it, there's the like different layers, and then there's plasma cells, and it goes down to the blood. But so secretory IgA gets made down there, and it comes up, and under normal conditions, it'll come out and it'll wrap around, kind of, it's good friends with, I like to say, with the commensal bacteria. So normally it's going to rise and fall to have the commensal bacteria. But because it's the first line of defense, if there's something going on like a parasite or a pathogen or a food
Mhm.
reaction, it can shoot way up.
Yes.
So if it's really high, it's telling you something's happening. And because it's the first line, it may go back down. It may, stay up as long as that's there. So I think we kind of look at it. Is there also inflammation? Should you, check for parasites? But I'd always rather see elevated than lower. So that's the other thing, it can go low. So
Yeah.
high to me is like, I'm doing what I'm doing. There was something here and I reacted. But
Mhm.
if it's really low, it can mean that I've been reacting for so long and I just can't do it anymore.
I'm just tired. I don't have any more reserves.
Yeah, yeah. So, then we think of, just supporting that immune system.
Would that be linked in some way to like histamine issues or histamine intolerance? I know that IgA is linked to that somehow.
Well, I think that all those they kind of can get put together. There's a lot of gut bacteria that can produce histamines.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, so, that can impact, and it can make, if there's a histamine producing bacteria, that can make someone more sensitive to histamines.
Right,
But
right. So
so
for cats who have a lot of immune, like skin, you mentioned skin issues, maybe skin sensitivities, red spots, hives, itching, things like that. How would this type of test be a good thing for them to do just to kind of get that overview of what your overall picture, especially with the IgA involved?
yeah, I think you can get immune and inflammation, and I guess it's always hard for us. Like, it's never a bad time to
Right.
look at what's going on in the gut, and
Mhm.
even if it's not the main issue, it being impaired is only going to help if you can kind of support that.
Yes,
So
yes.
getting some Saccharomyces boulardii or something to kind of help build up that IgA, um, those kind of
Okay.
things can be helpful. So yeah, I mean, it's always hard when you work at a lab too. It's like, let's do more testing. It's like,
Right. What else
throw
can
a
we do with
wider
this?
net.
It's so true. That's so true. So if someone were to order this test, and I love the fact that pet parents don't have to go to their vet and get a write off on it and all of that. They can just go directly. Actually, they can go to our website too because now we're affiliating with you, which is awesome. So so they can go to the website. They can order the kit. What happens then? Walk me through as if I was going to order a product myself.
Yeah, so when you're going to get it comes in a box. I normally have one right here, and it's going to be, you open it up, and the card on the front. The first thing you do is register your kit,
Yes.
because otherwise we can track you down and whose it is, but it just takes a while.
Yeah.
So you register your kit, and there's going to be like a little registration, but there's going to be a tube in there. And
Okay.
so the tube is going to, it's just this, it's not very big.
Hmm.
Um, and it has a little red line. And if we can get to the red line, great, but we don't have to get all the way to the red line. So you're just going to get a sample of your cat's poop, put it in the tube. It's got a
Tube.
little fork on the end of it.
Hmm.
And then you you put that in a bag, and then you put it back in the box it came in. You put that in the mailer. But
Okay.
when you get the sample, it's fine if it has cat litter on it.
Yeah.
So we've tested, like, so far we haven't found a litter type that is going to interfere with the results.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, and then also it can be out. So if you collect the sample, we just ask that, if within 24 hours, if you're not going to send it, you just put it in the freezer till you are going to send it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we'd like it to be like 24 hours. So if you can get it that day, and then just, put it in the tube. If you want to mail it, you can just mail it. But if you aren't able to do that, and
Yeah,
you just put it in your regular mail. You don't have to drive to, FedEx or
right.
wherever to mail it.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
we found that when we were starting the company, and we were like, none of us could get to the FedEx or any place. And so we are like, if we can't get there, it's too much trouble.
no,
So
absolutely. So, like, okay, so now they've dropped their package in the mail. It's coming back to your labs. Then what happens?
yeah, and you'll get a notice like it's, started, it's at the lab, it's been checked in. So we run every 2 weeks. So depending on where your package comes at those
Hmm.
days, it could be run the next day, or it could be run, it could take 2 weeks. But so we'll run the test, and then you get electronic results. So you're going to get an email,
Hmm.
and it's going to tell you that, your results. And in there, it's going to say, we looked at calprotectant. Here is the results that your pet had. Here's the ranges that we're looking at. So we normally will have what's high, what's borderline, and what's normal.
Okay.
So usually we're just looking at high, except for secretory IgA. We also look at low when it gets really low.
Hmm.
And so it'll tell you what those are. And then it just gives some just guidelines. We have the guidelines broken up into, diet, um, species specific supplements,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have it separated by cats and dogs per se, but it does on the results, will say
Okay.
for cats, for dogs.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
species specific supplements and then lifestyle changes.
Gotcha.
So a
That's
lot of times, and it depends and where people start
yeah.
as far as like what they're feeding their pet. We're not saying everybody should feed this way or everybody should have that supplement. So we're trying to target it. One of the things we like about the test is that there are so many products out there. I mean, for people and pets, like take
Mhm.
this is going to help with that. And it's like, what do I take? And so the test kind of helps you identify, what supplements do I need? Do I need to support the immune system? Do I need to deal with inflammation?
Yes.
So it's going to give you that information. And then we normally say, like follow that and then maybe retest in like 3 months.
That's smart. So the cool thing is you get your results and it gives you recommendations. Okay, now based on this, we recommend this, or
Right.
some of
And
these
we're
products.
pretty general. Like we don't want because some labs sell products. We don't
Mhm.
want to sell products because
Yeah.
we are lab people. We've
Yeah.
been lab people. And so there are a lot of good products out there.
Yeah.
So, I think that it makes more sense to use those. So we have a partners page too.
Oh, cool.
So I think that it has some of the products that we like Jay and Adrian have some products,
Yeah.
TheraPets. There's different stuff that's really targeted to cats for gut health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we put more general things in
Yeah.
there.
That's
And
perfect.
so, and it also depends on, where you are. If all you're doing is, if your cat is just eating kibble currently and you want to do something else, but you maybe don't, can't pay for or don't have, as much time to get involved with the diet, maybe you just put a topper on there,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you do a little bit with snacks.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's that Swedish study with dogs, and they had a really good response with dogs who just got 10% of their snacks, like 10% of their calories in snacks as more whole foods.
Yes.
So, and that's going to work with people, and there's not a specific study that I know of in cats, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Well, that is awesome. Um, Remind me, does the test itself help identify food sensitivities?
so we look at there's inflammation and immunity for cats, and
Mhm.
then there is a leaky gut test.
Okay.
So we look at zonulin in that. And
Okay.
so by leaky gut, we mean increased intestinal permeability, so that the
Right.
gut itself has increased permeability. And so normally the gut, it's got the little cells all lined
Yep.
up, but then
It starts to
when it
break apart.
yeah, so when I think of it like pickets on a fence. And
Yes.
so when some of the pickets, maybe one's not going to do anything, but when you start losing, closeness, it's harder for the immune system to regulate what's coming in because
Right.
inside the intestines is still outside the body. I mean, the immune system, 70% of the immune system's in the gut because it's got to like, hey, do we want to let this in?
Mhm.
So
Mm.
there's usually a big process with that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of immune reaction. So if that's impaired at all, that's going to cause immune reactions to things. So
Mhm.
one of the markers that we look at is zonulin. And when you're thinking about like the cells together, they normally have like little things that hold them together, tight
Yeah.
junctions that
Yeah.
hold those together. So zonulin can get secreted by reaction to gluten or certain gut bacteria. And there's not a lot of research in cats. So there may be other things that stimulate its production, but it'll pull those tight junctions off. So it
Mhm.
can be associated when it's at very high levels, there could be increased intestinal permeability.
Right.
So, and if that's the case, we think of, gut soothing type of products, things that are going to help soothe the gut lining.
Yes.
And then the other marker that we look at is antigliadin antibody. So anti-gliadin IgA. So it's an immune response to gliadin, which is a component of gluten.
Ah, okay.
So that's going to be what your reaction is to that. And it's not looking at celiac disease. It's not looking
Right.
at allergy. So allergy would be IgE. Celiac is going to be, I don't, cats aren't really,
Right.
there's certain like breeds of dogs that
Mhm.
they get it more. But so we're really just looking at what's happening. And this is like true in pets and people. A fecal anti-gliadin IgA is just what's happening within the intestine.
Okay.
So but if it's high, it just means there is an immune reaction going on.
Mhm.
And there are some cross reactivities. Certain proteins may fold. So
Yep.
if you're sometimes we'll get people who have anti-gliadin reaction that's high, and they're like, well, my pet doesn't get any gluten. A lot of times it's like, oh, we'll go back and, oh, maybe those snacks were, or maybe somebody like the neighbor was giving snacks. So you can sometimes find those things.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just a reaction because their zonulin is also elevated. So healing the gut and maybe pulling out the gluten while you're healing the gut can be helpful. So it's not an allergic reaction that you can never have that again. Not that, that the cats necessarily need it, but so it's really looking at the level of immune reaction, and then a level of intestinal permeability.
Nice. Nice. Because I think, even today, with as many people that are kind of waking up to learning how to read ingredients on pet food labels, there is so much wheat products in processed treats and pet food, cat foods, dry
Mhm.
food, kibbles. I don't think people really take a look at those labels. And I'm always asking people, did you read the label? Did you read the label? You got to
Yeah,
read
I
the
mean,
label. You would be shocked at what's in your cat's food. Just read your labels. Oh my gosh, it doesn't belong in there, and you see wheat gluten in these foods, and you're like, what? You see
yeah, barley and rye also have
corn
it.
and
Oats can impact
yes,
it. Yeah,
oats and potatoes and corn and all of these starchy things.
yeah. So, I mean, you can kind of get an idea for how your pet is doing, its
Mhm.
reaction to food. So
Yep.
you can do that before you make changes, or you can make a lot of changes and then see, where that
Yep.
is. Um,
Yes, exactly.
And a lot of times the changes, if you have a lot of increased intestinal permeability, you may also have a lot of calprotectin. So you may have a lot of inflammation. So
Mhm.
sometimes there's, once the kind of thing starts to spiral, it all kind of goes, has an issue.
Yes. Like
When we think of triaging, though, I think calprotectant certainly has the best literature. So, and it can be the most significant. So I'd always put calprotectant as my number one. If I'm going to deal with something, calprotectant's the first thing I'm going to look at. And then zonulin probably the second, secretory IgA, because it fluctuates a little bit more. Um,
mhm. Oh,
I, you know,
interesting. So cats can get these tests. They can start some protocols on some gut healing, gut soothing types of products that will help support whatever their testing results indicate. And then in about 3 months, it's good to do a little follow up just to see how you're making progress and how much have things changed since you made your changes and
mhm.
supportive measures and things like that. Um, and then after that, let's say they don't see a whole lot of change. Is there Do you have like specific recommendations for, to take back to their vet or more diagnostics that need to be done, or what would you suggest at that point?
Yeah, so our test results, you can print them off as a PDF and
Okay,
take them to your vet. We have on our website, something you can download for vets that kind of explain the test, because,
nice.
they're not necessarily intuitive. I mean, they're not
No,
like they all get taught in school. It's like nutrition. I mean, it's like
yeah,
it's essential, but it doesn't necessarily get taught.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
We have, some stuff you can, print and take to your vet, or just, send them to the website. But
Yeah.
you can print the results. You could print them as a PDF and then forward them in an email, or print it. And so
Oh,
the vet
nice.
can kind of see, because
Okay.
some of them, like I said, if you have a cat that's losing weight and a super high calprotectant, you're going to want to follow up with that.
Yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
see. And a lot of the studies where, oh, my cat's put on weight, they look better. Are they all the way better, or is there, kind of some low level inflammation? So that can kind of help
Mhm.
keep you on track, seeing that things are happening there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because, the truth is vets are so busy, and with so many great new technologies and testing kits like this coming out, they're just not even familiar. They've never heard of some of these things because it's not in their circle, or, they don't have time to just read all the latest literature and look at all these great new products or whatever, unless they're at their annual convention and walking through trade shows, or, things like that.
Right. Yeah.
A great opportunity for them to kind of have some time set aside to go look and see what's here, what's new, what can I learn more about, and things like that. So it's great just to be able to give them just some PDF materials that go along with it, explaining what this is showing and what they need to know about it, so that they can guide their patients and, gets
Yeah.
get
Yeah. I
the
mean, it
new
does take a
products.
while. I think in the human world, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same in the vet world, it
Start.
takes like 10 years from kind of making a discovery like, hey, this is working with this, and then to make it into a textbook. And
Yes.
so when you get your textbooks in medical school or veterinary school, that information in there is already kind of old. So it's
Yeah.
hard to get, updated information in there. And
Yeah.
also, I think with more kind of an integrative approach, we're
Mm.
not diagnosing a specific condition.
Right.
So we're just kind of on the edges of support.
Mhm.
So we can help kind of give some overall support. It's like if a person had diabetes, you can give them medication, but if they're not going to change their diet or, lifestyle, it's only going to go so far. So it's
Mhm.
not, the diet and lifestyle may not cure it, but you
Yeah.
sure can support it, and, and help with, longevity and just better overall, feeling. So
Yeah.
that's where we are. So we're not trying to replace
Yeah.
veterinary care in any way. We just want to support and kind of, the whole health, that everybody, like holistic health that everybody wants to get and see the full picture.
Yeah. I love that, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want happy, healthy, vibrant pets, cats,
Yeah.
and we want to be able to partner with our vet and work with great companies like you guys, who are just trying to provide some tools that can show some, hey, weaknesses and indications, and here's some areas to work on. And it's like indicators, it's markers. And when you have these road signs, I guess I would call them,
Yeah.
it can kind of point your vet into the right direction of, okay, how can we really provide healing? What do we need to do, taking this information and these road markers, and just go a different direction? So with cats, it's always interesting because it has to be their idea when we change things. you know they can be very some can be very not so cooperative, and they get very stuck in their ways, just like people. They like their routines, they like their foods, and when we start to change things up, sometimes they're not so happy to go along with it. So I say, pack your patience, and you're in it for the long haul. Just plan on taking it one day at a time.
Right. Yeah. I
you
mean,
know
sometimes, when people do follow up, it's not all the way taken care of. And so
yeah.
it's like, you know, and it depends on stress. Like when we first started doing some of our developing the cat line, we went to the local shelter and
Oh,
we
no.
just like, hey, can we get your cat poop?
Yeah.
And then once we started getting healthy cats, we're like, wow, those cats in the shelter are pretty stressed.
Yeah.
So they had a lot go, and they were well taken care of. Like
Mm.
they had a place to sleep, they'd had, good veterinary care. So it wasn't like they were abandoned. They've had a traumatic event, anytime you're, stuck in a shelter. And probably they have the real basic food and getting all their vaccines just because they don't know who's had what. So
Right.
they're somewhat stressed, but then they were just a lot higher in those markers. They just had a lot more issues going on.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me just for the reasons that you said. You know, our cats are little energy sponges. And as we know, there is the gut brain highway between the microbiome and the brain. And so that's where all the emotions go. There's communication there. So emotions play a huge role in overall health and wellness, um, and the gut and the microbiome. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I think once it gets lost and there's so much stress, like one of the things that in the human world they've been noticing or that they're discovering that like bloating has less to do with gas production and
Mm,
more to do with a disconnect of the vagal nerve, which is the main nerve between the brain and the gut. And
interesting.
that diaphragmatic breathing is going to be helpful at reconnecting that.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, calm down
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of
Deep
really
breaths.
breathing the right way. And so I think that, when I think of cats just being, thrown into a shelter, that it's like, what's going on? And so all those like normal breathing are going to be disrupted, and
Yes,
just the fight or flight is going to be always, coming up. And so.
certainly. It's definitely more stressful for sure.
Mhm.
On a
Yeah, and then when we did do that study with Jay and Adrian, we found cats who had issues, and then they went on products for like 3 months, and
Mhm.
then we did follow-ups, and we saw really good improvement.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and they were specific, just products. We kind of just had overall support products, and it wasn't like they just went on a ton. I think there were
Right.
2 or 3. So,
Yeah.
um, and so we saw a big difference in that. So we
Yeah,
know making changes is going to make a difference with
it
what's
does.
happening in the gut.
It does. And I just like to remind people all the time that it takes time. It takes months to really transition and change the overall picture because you're like you said earlier, your cat didn't just wake up one day and have IBD or have inflammation in the gut. This is something that has been building and building and building over time. And all of a sudden, you start to get symptoms on the outside. You're like, oh no, what's happening? So you think about how long your cat has been, let's say, out of balance.
Mhm.
It's going to take a while to get back into balance because, again, those things take time. So keep
Yeah, I
holding
mean,
it right.
same, yeah, yeah. People always say that, like, they just want to take something for 2 weeks and it should be all better. And it's like,
Yeah,
hey,
doesn't work like
it's
that.
taking years.
Yes, yes,
Because if
absolutely.
you're totally imbalanced at first, if you go out, it's like, oh, just a little bit you can get back. But if you just keep creeping,
Yes, the further away you get from that 0 point target, even if it's 1 degree off, the further out you go, the further out
right?
you
Yeah,
are
it's a
off
bad
long
trajectory.
term. So, yeah, that trajectory can be way off by, year 2, year 3 years down the road, and you've just have been, ignoring the signs. So
Yeah, and I think especially with cats, I mean, they just don't want you to get involved necessarily.
right,
So
and
I'll
they
handle it.
hide.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll
Mhm.
hide all their symptoms. They're very good masters of disguise. They don't want you to know that they
Right.
don't feel good.
I'm good. Leave me alone.
Yeah, leave me alone. I'm good. I'm just gonna go sleep over here by myself, hide under the bed. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. But yeah, it's not always the case. It's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
definitely not. Well, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you feel would be important for our cat parents to know about?
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I mean,
Okay,
we have,
awesome.
the test, and we think they can help, especially if you have gut issues, but also if you just want to check, if you're doing a
Yes.
lot, can help you
Yeah.
target, what kind of treatments you want to do, or would
Yes.
probably be best.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, this has been so helpful and just fascinating information. I really appreciate your time
oh, you're welcome.
and for
Thanks for
being
having
the
me.
chat today. So, you guys, definitely go over and check out the comprehensive gut health testing for cats. We do carry this at Perfectly Holistic. Um, we are a proud affiliate with these ladies over here at IPL. So just appreciate Dr. Redmond, all that you're doing to help our kitties with technology like this. It's so appreciated, especially in the cat world. So with
Yeah,
that,
we were glad to do it. I mean, it was an oversight on ours when we first started. It's like, oh, the research is in dogs, and it's like, oh yeah, there's lots of cats.
there's a
So
lot of
we do feel like we're out there, like, okay, we're going to do it, and we just got such a great response because cats are often left out.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's why we are here trying to fill in those gaps.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop comments here in our chat and we will definitely answer you guys. But thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day, everyone. And we'll be back really soon with another show.